Recovered by Gabby Marshall. Here comes Clark. How will she go for history? There it is! The all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball.
Who really wanted with me? I'm at the top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. I don't have a limit.
This past month, women's college basketball phenom Caitlin Clark broke records like we've rarely seen before in the NCAA for both men and women.
Caitlin Clark unloads!
Although the list of records she's either broken or set are extensive, some of the top include being named the Big Ten's all-time women's leader in assists and points.
Clark bodies right through Sherrod in an early bucket for Caitlin Clark.
The NCAA's Division I women's career scoring leader.
And there's another one for Caitlin Clark.
And the all-time leader in points scored in Division I history.
But you know who they go to. 22 from the outside.
With Clark's rise, we're seeing an exciting moment in women's sports that many are dubbing the Caitlin Clark effect. Today, we're talking to our head women's volleyball coach, Amber Zitzow, to discuss Clark's success, athletics at St. Mary's, and the future of women's sports. And in the second half of the show, we'll talk with our own Izzy Goettelman about playing basketball for St. Mary's and about Clark's inspiration on a generation of young people who are able to grow up in a world where the opportunity to play professional sports is truly a dream for all.
Let's hear it one more time for number 22, Caitlin Clark!
I'm Ben Rogers. You're listening to St. Mary's Currents. Amber, thank you so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to this topic, kind of the Caitlin Clark effect in this moment in women's sports. But first, can we have you introduce yourself and what you do here at St. Mary's?
Yes, thank you, Ben. So I'm just finishing up my second year here at St. Mary's University as the head volleyball coach. I went to Winona State University. I played volleyball at Winona State University, and I got a sports management degree. I have coached in many of the high schools in southeastern Minnesota, and before I was at St. Mary's, I was the head coach at Rochester Community and Technical College in Rochester, Minnesota. So that's kind of a little short background about me.
Well, all right. Let's dive into this topic. Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa basketball player, is huge right now. She's setting all kinds of records. She went first in the WNBA draft a week ago. As a coach, have you been following Clark? And what's it like to see her rise to such prominence in what is usually seen as a male-dominant sport and really be a leader in this moment for women's sports?
Yes, of course I'm following Caitlin Clark. I'm a huge sports fan, and it's been fun to watch her, and it's about time, you guys. It's about time that we get some recognition in the women's world. Not saying we haven't been getting any, but she has kind of showcased the women, okay? Her story in itself has been really interesting. She grew up with a supportive family, with older brothers who really pushed her. She often talks about being kicked out of PE because of how competitive she is, and it's kind of interesting, too, because she, growing up playing basketball, didn't make a USA team. So, and also kind of interesting, too, is she didn't go to the college she wanted to. She didn't want to originally go to Iowa. She wanted to go play for Gino at UConn. So that's kind of interesting. But I also think it's cool that she stayed at home in her home state and became a hometown hero, as you could say. It also showed that the women can do these things also. And that's the kind of thing kind of helped bring attention to her. For example, Caitlin's shooting these half-court three-pointers, these NBA threes consistently. It's not just here or there, but I mean, that's in her game. Her incredible passes down to her teammates and just her dominance and competitive drive, which continues to be consistent. So I think it's just been fun to watch her.
Absolutely. So with Clark coming to prominence, it really seems like it's just a massive moment for women's sports. What about this moment do you think is unique specifically?
Again, I'm going to say it. It's about time. Women are getting recognition. I think a lot of it has been the media attention that we are getting, the broadcasting of women's sports on national networks. It's brought more attention for like equipment and facilities. For example, all the sold out arenas and ticket sales. I got to put a little plug in for volleyball here as a volleyball coach. For example, this fall, Nebraska volleyball did something incredible. They always have huge attendance at all of their athletic events. But the Nebraska volleyball team set the national world record for women's attendance with 92,000 people. The teams played each other and then had a big showcase, and then they had a big concert at the end too. But 92,000 people in an outdoor football stadium,
Right.
How cool is that? And then Iowa basketball kind of turned around and did the same thing. The women's basketball team set the women's basketball attendance record with over 55,000 people. They did the same thing, had an outdoor basketball match at their football stadium, which showcased it too. Also kind of with the media attention, the volleyball national championship, for example, was broadcasted on ABC. First time national recognition. It was the most watched finalist for volleyball. And usually it's on ESPN, but to have it broadcast on ABC,
Right.
That's incredible for the women's volleyball. And also for the women's basketball NCAA tournament, all of the games were televised live on ESPN, and many of them were sold out in arenas. And it was also the most watched Elite Eight games all the way up to the finals games also for the women's game. Because, you had the Iowa and LSU game, and so
Right.
on and so forth. So, yeah.
Right. It's interesting. You just mentioned volleyball. We're seeing it on network TV for the first time. Nebraska sold out a match in its football stadium. Right now we have Caitlin, dominating in basketball, boosting ticket sales there. But what is it about, that's driving interest in women's volleyball?
I think with volleyball, the transfer portal has been huge. So we've got ladies going to, Nebraska's a powerhouse.
Right.
Texas is a powerhouse. Wisconsin's a powerhouse. And I think in the volleyball world, there's so many people playing the game now, young age all the way through adulthood. And it's such an exciting game right now, the way it's changed with the rally scoring and the net serves and just how hard and how athletic these women are hitting the ball. And our defense, our liberos are digging up these balls. It's just an exciting game to watch. And again, social media has been a huge part of it. These ladies are showcasing themselves greatly on social media.
All right. So Caitlin has undoubtedly inspired a new generation of female athletes. In what ways do you think her success has influenced the aspiration and ambitions of young women in sports? And how can coaches and institutions like St. Mary's and other organizations that have sports teams continue to nurture and support this growing interest?
I think these aspirations and ambitions may start as a young age, okay? So advancing into middle and then going all the way to high school. They see and hear how successful these athletes are, and they want to be like them or even better than them. I mean, Caitlin was the same way. Her role model was Maya Moore. She wanted to be better than Maya Moore. She wanted to, be just like Maya. These young women that are looking up to them, they want autographs to make signs for them. Caitlin is their role model or whoever is their role model. And I alluded to earlier, it's kind of like the slogan, I want to be like Mike, right? Michael
Right.
Jordan. I want to be like Maya, because that was a big thing too when she was coming through. And now it's I want to be like Caitlin. And then when it comes to like the coaches, it's not only us coaches, but their support and their nurturing families that help these athletes improve their skills on and off the court and help them guide them and become who they are. It's kind of interesting when times were tough for her. When Caitlin didn't make the USA team, the younger USA team, did they blame the coaches? No. When she didn't get recruited to UConn, that made her work harder, right? She didn't come up with an excuse. She pushed and worked harder, and she worked smarter. She accepted the challenge. Her family pushed her, especially her dad. They held her accountable and to a high standard. I also think as coaches, we want to push our athletes to the best that they can be on and off the court. We want to help guide them through their young adult lives. As institutions, I think we need to continue to be creative when it comes to funding and money coming from our benefactors and making sure that we spread that among all of our sports.
Absolutely. Given the growing interest and investment in women's sports, how do you see that influencing the landscape of collegiate athletics, particularly in terms of recruiting and fan engagement?
Yeah. When it comes to recruiting, for example, Caitlin has shown that you don't need to go to a big powerhouse to be successful. I mean, Iowa was known for basketball, but they weren't a powerhouse. Would she have gotten the local fan support if she would have played, for example, at UConn? Would Gino let her shoot these unbelievable threes? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
We'll never know, right? And then also like recruiting, why not stay close to home? So many high school athletes think it's about the scholarship, it's about the money. Well, when they can just stay close to home and just be this rising star. And then, for example, I think it's kind of neat, just throwing this in here about the fan engagement. They were two younger girls that asked for an autograph from Caitlin during the game. I don't know if they went during a timeout or a halftime. And she kind of alluded to them that this isn't the time right now, but I will find you after the game. And most people don't remember that, right? But she went and she found them. She's always available to her fans and appreciative and grateful for them. So I think it's huge for even the college athletes. You know, like for volleyball, for example, we do these little youth clinics and they come and watch us.
Right.
So it's important that we continue to be great examples on social media, just in our life in general, and we go up to them, show appreciation, and just thank them for coming.
Yeah. All right. So last question. How do you, as a coach, use a moment like this to inspire your athletes?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just kind of fun. We got to give credit to Lisa Bluter, the Iowa coaching staff, right? It's not just her, but the whole entire coaching staff, and they let Caitlin be Caitlin. Yeah. I think there are a lot of ways you can use this to inspire athletes on your team. There's different points here. So like the first one, if you're so-called the big dog on your team, you can learn from this, learn from her and how she handles herself when talking about her team and what she did for her team. She was the first leading scorer to be in the finals. That says something. Caitlin was the scoring leader, but also she was the assist leader. That says something. She made her teammates better and didn't make it about herself. When she did interviews, she uses the word we instead of I when referring to her team. And I think that's huge. She didn't make it about her, right? At least that's what we saw, right? Another thing is, how do you think your teammates felt when she was getting all this recognition? Were they jealous? Were they cheering her on? Did they push her or challenge her to be better? Like, just think about it. If you were in that situation, how would you react if you were her teammates? I believe that they did. They accepted the recognition that the team was getting, how the best player made them better, and they showed up. So that's another example. So if you're not the big dog, what are you doing, right? And then I also inspire the younger generation. Use this. As athletes and coaches, I believe that we have to remember that everyone is watching and looking up to us. We are role models to people, and that's huge and important. Another thing is using just the work ethic piece. What do you do when times get tough? She had tough times, right? What do you do when you don't see much playing time? Are you buying into your role? Being on a college athletic team is one of the best times of your life. And it's more than just playing, it's life lessons. So after you play college, especially in women's, there's that huge opportunity for us to go play professionally, right? Let's be honest here. Right. We're going to go into our careers. So your next boss or when you're in your next leadership role, they don't really care if you're a starter or non-starter, right? They care about if you're on this team and you were a team player and how you pushed each other and you bought into the culture. And once you want that person on your team, once you want that person in your leadership role and be part of your culture. So just to kind of closing here, I just think it's an exciting time for athletics in general, and especially women's athletics, okay? And I can only hope that the women's world of sports just keeps getting more and more recognition.
Thanks so much, Amber.
Cool. It's been fun.
We'll be right back in a minute with Izzy Goettelman. Don't go away.
Education is often synonymous with St. Mary's University of Minnesota. That's because education is deeply intertwined with who we are and who we have always been. With our strong reputation for preparing highly skilled teachers and administrators, the School of Education offers programs for new and experienced teachers, school administrators, and those seeking a doctoral degree. In fact, our school's alumni have received some of the most prestigious awards in education, including being named one of Time Magazine's 10 innovative teachers and having left legacies in schools and districts across Minnesota and the world. We specialize in developing ethical leaders to meet today's challenges facing education. We'll help guide you to develop the skills, characteristics, and integrity that are crucial to improving the lives of your students, district, and communities. When you join the School of Education, you become part of a vast community of leaders who are making a difference in education and the world. Join us by visiting smumn.edu. St. Mary's University of Minnesota, because of you.
This is exciting. You're the first student that we've had on the podcast, so welcome. Before we discuss the topic, could you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm Izzy. I'm actually from here in Winona. I am a junior here, and I am on the women's basketball team, and I am an elementary education major.
Thanks, Izzy. So today we're discussing the Caitlin Clark effect and this moment in women's sports. Women's college basketball is really getting this boost in support. People are watching it on TV. It's breaking viewership records. Arenas are selling out. As a collegiate basketball player, what's it like to watch this moment?
For me, it's honestly, I couldn't even imagine that type of thing. Even 3 years ago, coming into college, women's basketball used to just be the sport everyone looked over, and it was always men's basketball and men's sports in general. But really with Caitlin, I feel like it's been a huge benefit to the game. And I mean, another player I've always watched growing up was Paige Beckers, and obviously she's impacted the game too. And I think it's so cool to see the impact they're having on the game and how people are watching it and are tuning in. And this year they were showing, the stats have been showing that the viewership and just the ticket sales in general, the women's basketball teams have been selling out more, and the Final Four. And it's just really, really monumental. And it's awesome to see that, we're getting the recognition that we deserve. And I think it's just amazing.
Right. When we were chatting with Amber, she said multiple times throughout the interview, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, it's about time.
Yes.
Yeah. So as an athlete, have you personally drawn inspiration from this moment in women's sport? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, especially coming out of high school, I've always watched some of the big names that are in college now, just kind of seeing them on social media and all that. And it kind of inspired me to go out for college sports and try my best to get a part of a team. And, as I got here, I realized, okay, all these women basketball players are, inspirations for all these other people and all these people coming up in the years. So I was that's a really cool experience and something I want to be a part of. And I think it's just a very awesome feeling to know women's basketball is finally something that's getting recognized, and women's sports in general.
You mentioned a high schooler might see this and want to go on to play basketball in college. Do you see this moment and people like Caitlin really encouraging more girls in high school to pursue collegiate sports?
Yeah, I really do believe that. But I also think it even goes younger than that. You look at the fans that attend their games, and some of them are really young girls, but they're inspired to play basketball. They're inspired to start these things at a younger age, which will only benefit them as they, grow older and become some of the best basketball players to be. So, yeah, I do think she's inspired a lot of kids and girls. I went to the Big Ten games in the cities. And then I went to one other game, and it was just the coolest atmosphere to be in. There was so many young girls there wearing Caitlin Clark merchandise, and I thought that was just so cool to see. And, it really shows you she is touching the youngest generations of those 7-8-year-olds that are coming up in the world and want to play basketball. But I just feel it's, especially again with just the players nowadays in college, with the women's basketball players especially, there's just so much more emphasis on you can go professional, you can have these big dreams and you can work hard for them and you can achieve these things. And that's something in their after game conferences, they'll talk about that. You work hard for these things, you dream about them, you can achieve them. And, growing up again, it was always the men are just gonna, men can go play professional, men can play whatever sport they want. They can go in college and play whatever they want, where it was oh, you want, if you're a girl, you want to play professional basketball or you want to go play a sport in college, are you actually going to be able to, kind of thing. It was more of a question, where now it's oh yeah, you definitely can do that. Definitely work for it. Definitely go for that. And it's I just feel even when I was younger, it was more I didn't always believe that I could, because I always was women don't do that. Girls don't do that. It's a very slim picking amount of people that get to do that type of thing. But again, as I got through high school and I started watching more women's sports, and I was okay, I definitely can do this. And you just have to believe in yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what do you hope comes next from this moment? And what might you say to younger athletes who are watching this moment in sports?
I would probably say, like, really learn, like, really understand the game and, like, but also don't put too much pressure on yourself right now before you, like, work yourself out of it. You don't want to, like, burn yourself out before you even get to the level that you be at, the level you dream of. And, but you do have to work hard for these things, and they don't just get handed to you. But, you can be inspired by the generations above you. And again, like with Caitlin, I feel like she's been doing that so well. She obviously is just an amazing athlete in herself, but I feel like she does a lot to just like engage the audience and the crowd. And, some people might not always like that, but I also feel like that's a part of her game that gets recognized because the fans like that, the younger girls like that. Like, they're like, okay, like I can be who I want and do things like that. And, it's also been something growing up, like the men are always getting away with that, but the women would get they get judged for it pretty much if they did anything like that. So like for her to kind of break through that barrier too, I think is cool.
Yeah, we've seen stories about packed houses wherever the University of Iowa goes. And when we talked with Amber, she discussed recently that college volleyball is also blowing up. With St. Mary's being kind of a smaller community, is the fan support already kind of built in? And what's it like to have that? Or, on the flip side, has the team seen an increase in people coming out with this moment in women's sports?
Yeah, with St. Mary's being small, we don't draw in the biggest crowds of people. I've definitely seen an increase of attendance since my first year here, and I think that's just really good. But also, I've seen a lot more just students coming too, which, again, first year we didn't really see that many. But I think it's just, yeah, I've definitely seen the progression in that.
Well, Izzy, thank you so much again for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
St. Mary's Currents is a production of the St. Mary's University of Minnesota Office of Marketing and Communication. It is produced by Ben Rogers and Ashley Beeson. It is recorded, edited, and engineered by Jeffrey DeMarsh. Our theme music is by Will Vanda Cromer. I'm Ben Rogers. We'll see you next time for St. Mary's Currents.